As life becomes increasingly modern and hectic, it's natural to wonder if our moral values and respect for our elders are being overshadowed by the pursuit of wealth. Have you ever questioned whether, in our later years, we will still be loved and respected if we don't have financial resources? These concerns are not just personal worries, they are shared by many elderly people who observe the shifts in attitudes among the younger generation. Let's delve into a touching story about family love, where respect for the elderly was once a true reflection of one's character and morality. In today's fast-paced world, can we rediscover and uphold these traditional values? Story 1. 74 years old and living alone. Despite having 4 children, I'm 74 years old now, spending my retirement in a nursing home. 2 years ago, I lost my wife. We had 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter. My wife and I were thrilled to have a big family back then. We put all our effort into raising our kids well, hoping they would be there for us in our later years. However, things didn't turn out as expected. After our youngest daughter got married, my wife and I found ourselves living alone. At that time, our jobs kept us occupied, but after retirement, the loneliness between us, 2 elderly people, began to grow. Our children were wrapped up in their own lives and seldom visited us. We tried to understand, but the absence of even a simple phone call left us deeply saddened. Sometimes, we missed our children and grandchildren so much that we would take a bus just to see them. Retirement was fairly uneventful for my wife and me. Besides going to exercise classes and attending a senior club in our neighborhood, we had little else to look forward to. Our combined pension of around $2,000 a month covered our needs comfortably. We didn't need financial support from our children, but when my wife fell ill 2 years ago and passed away, it was a devastating blow, and I found myself in need of care. During that time, my 4 children started visiting more frequently, taking turns. I once overheard them discussing who should take me in. Feeling unsafe living alone, I was relieved, thinking that my children cared more than I had realized. However, reality struck hard. After their discussion, none of my children were willing to take me in. My eldest son claimed that his house was too cramped and that their finances were tight. My second son, who lived with his in-laws, said it would be inconvenient. My third son and his wife were too busy with work and often traveled, so they couldn't provide proper care, even if I lived with them. This left me heartbroken, but I still held out hope for my youngest daughter, who had always been the most affectionate and had lived with me the longest. However, my last hope was shattered when she said her husband wasn't comfortable with me living with them. That's when I realized that I couldn't count on my children in my old age. I knew I had to become stronger and plan carefully for the rest of my life, managing my retirement funds without relying on them. After regaining my composure, I reviewed my pension and the savings my wife and I had accumulated. Even after covering my wife's medical expenses, we still had a good amount of savings. I understood that old age could bring unexpected challenges, like sudden illness, that might leave me unable to care for myself. Without someone to help, it could become a serious problem. So I decided that if my children were unwilling to care for me, I would hire help or move into a nursing home. I planned to sell my house and asked my children to help find a buyer. To my surprise, all 4 of them opposed my decision to use the house sale money for the nursing home. They started visiting more frequently, urging me to keep the house, but no one mentioned offering me support or taking me in. It dawned on me that their real concern was not me, but the house. If I kept it, they could inherit it after I passed away. In the end, I had no choice but to take matters into my own hands. I stuck to my decision and sold the house for nearly $300,000, then moved into a nursing home. The money went into a savings account, which I used to cover my expenses in my new home. Life in the nursing home turned out to be far less lonely than I had feared. Here, I receive excellent care, and with many friends in similar situations, it's easy to share our thoughts and experiences. Now, my 4 children, feeling guilty for leaving me in a nursing home, are often criticized by our relatives. They've begun to regret their decision and have arranged a schedule to take turns visiting me every week. Honestly, living without financial worries in old age has brought me an unexpected sense of peace. It doesn't matter where I live anymore. What's clear is that everyone should have their own savings for old age. If we can't depend on our children, we can still take control of our lives, ensuring that our later years are free from worry and sorrow. Story 2. Selling the house for her son, but now living in a rental. This is the story of Aunt Lucy, a 59-year-old woman. Aunt Lucy and her husband worked tirelessly throughout their lives, hoping to secure a bright future for their 2 children, a son and a daughter. Unfortunately, when the children grew up, Aunt Lucy's husband passed away, leaving her alone. From that point on, her life revolved entirely around her children. Luckily, Aunt Lucy had a pension of about $500 a month, so she didn't need to rely on her children for financial support. She managed her own living expenses and healthcare without needing help. Aunt Lucy and her husband had also built a spacious house of about 200 square meters. Their life was stable, and when her son got married, they didn't have to worry about housing. The couple could focus on working hard and building their future, allowing Aunt Lucy to enjoy a peaceful retirement. But things took an unexpected turn. After getting married and having children, Aunt Lucy's son wanted to move to a larger, more modern house, arguing that the old house wasn't suitable for raising children. He asked Aunt Lucy to sell the house so they could move to the city. Aunt Lucy hesitated, knowing that the house was the only property left by her ancestors. But after much persuasion from her son and daughter-in-law, and thinking about her grandchildren's future, she reluctantly agreed to sell the house. The 59-year-old woman gave the entire $100,000 from the sale to her son and daughter-in-law to buy a new house. They bought a small house in the city, much smaller than the old one, and had to take on debt to make the purchase. Life became more challenging for the family after moving to the city. Out of love for her children, Aunt Lucy continued to give her entire pension to her son, keeping nothing for herself. Living together, she saved as much as possible, believing she didn't need money since she was taking care of her grandchildren. Aunt Lucy thought that when she became old and sick, her children would take care of her in return, so she didn't worry. As time passed, Aunt Lucy's health started to decline. She told her son that she was too tired to care for the grandchildren as she used to. Her legs hurt, and she found it hard to move around. Instead of showing understanding, her son became angry, accusing her of not even being able to handle the simple task of looking after the children. Not long after, he and his wife decided that they no longer wanted to live with her and told her to find a place to rent. Shocked and heartbroken, Aunt Lucy left her son's house. She deeply regretted giving away all her assets and now faced a difficult situation. After leaving her son's home, Aunt Lucy went to her daughter's house, only to be met with more disappointment. Her daughter said, "You sold the house to help my brother and his wife, but we didn't get anything. Why don't they take care of you anymore? Why are you coming to us now?" Hearing this, Aunt Lucy was devastated. She couldn't believe that both of her children would turn their backs on her in her old age. With no other option, Aunt Lucy found a small room to rent. Fortunately, her pension was enough to cover her living expenses, so she didn't have to rely on anyone. Now, as she lies alone in her rented room, Aunt Lucy has learned a crucial lesson. No matter how much you care for others, you must always keep something for yourself. If you give everything away, you may end up filled with regret, with no way to turn back. Story 3. Learning to depend on ourselves, a father's path to independence. When I retired with a pension of $2,000 per month, my life suddenly became much easier. I'd always been a workaholic, never able to stay idle for long, so when an old friend started a business and offered me a consulting position for $2,000 a month, I jumped at the opportunity. With years of experience under my belt, the work was straightforward for me. This meant that each month, in addition to my pension, I was bringing in an extra $2,000. My wife and I lived comfortably, saving a respectable amount without needing to lean on our children. Realizing that I could still earn money, even in retirement, I felt the urge to share this success with friends and neighbors. However, my wife advised against it, saying it was wiser to keep financial matters private to avoid being exploited or scammed. Her advice made sense, so I kept it to myself. Nonetheless, I still wanted to share this with my son to ease his worries. He was under a lot of pressure from work and life, dealing with car payments and business challenges. I wanted to help him out, but my wife disagreed. I believed that giving him some money could alleviate his problems and strengthen our relationship. I hoped that in our later years we could count on our children. But my wife insisted that we should focus on taking care of ourselves, rather than depending on others, even our children. After considering her perspective, I realized she was right and decided not to push the issue. One day when my son came to visit, he asked about my pension. Before I could respond, my wife quickly interjected, saying it was around $500. I smiled awkwardly and avoided eye contact. When he tried to probe further, my wife deftly changed the subject, signaling that she didn't want to discuss it. Eventually, I let the matter go. When the new year came, my wife and I were surprised that our son's family didn't come home to celebrate. In the past, no matter how busy he was, my son always made it a point to bring his family to spend the new year with us. This time, not only did they not come, but they also didn't call to wish us a happy new year. Knowing my son was likely upset, I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning each night. My wife tried to reassure me, saying he was probably just overwhelmed with work. Her words brought me some comfort, but I missed my grandchildren so much that I decided to visit them. I texted my son to let him know, and he agreed, which made me happy. I thought maybe I had been worrying for no reason. However, when I arrived at my son's house, I was faced with a harsh reality. After getting off the bus, I called my son to pick us up, but since he was busy, he asked us to wait. The sun was scorching, so we took a taxi instead. When we arrived, my daughter-in-law was lounging on the sofa, watching TV. She didn't even greet us, only our grandson warmly welcomed us, offering tea and helping with our luggage. Throughout the day, my wife and I felt a noticeable chill from our son and his family. It seemed like our visit was more of an inconvenience than a joy. My son even said, "If you're not willing to help, don't expect anything from us in the future." His words cut deep. The next morning, we packed up and left early. At first, I felt guilty for not helping my children, but after some reflection, I realized my wife was right. This experience opened my eyes to my children's true feelings. While it's natural for parents to care for their children, expecting the same care in return is a different matter. If I hadn't heard those words myself, I might have continued believing that my children treated me well out of genuine respect. This incident made me understand that we can't rely on our children in old age. Fortunately, my wife and I had saved enough to support ourselves. As my wife wisely said, it's better to depend on ourselves. After all, it's not our children, but we who shape our future. If we don't want to hand over control of our lives to someone else, we must take charge from the beginning. If these stories inspire you and encourage you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Thank you for your valuable time. Story 4. 3 unexpected challenges that can make life tough. After 60, dear readers, turning 60 often marks the start of our senior years, a time when many of us hope to enjoy life peacefully, free from the responsibilities and worries of our younger days. However, life is unpredictable, and certain challenges can leave us feeling powerless and overwhelmed as we grow older. Here are 3 significant challenges that can deeply affect our lives during these later years. Health issues. Good health is the most valuable asset in life. No matter how much wealth we accumulate, it means little if we don't have our health. As we age, especially after 60, neglecting our health can lead to the pain and suffering of illness. Not only do we endure the physical strain, but our loved ones are also affected, often leading to frustration and even neglect from those closest to us. Before 60, we might have taken our health for granted, brushing off minor illnesses or believing that serious ones could be overcome with rest. But after 60, we must pay closer attention to our health as conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes become more common. Even so, we shouldn't let illness rob us of the joy of living. Accepting health challenges without giving up on life helps us maintain a proactive and positive approach to aging. Everyone goes through the cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death, but that doesn't mean we should surrender to every battle. Taking care of our health brings not only happiness to ourselves, but also peace to our loved ones. The loss of a life partner. In our later years, companionship becomes more important than ever. Sharing life's simple pleasures with a partner during the twilight years is a cherished dream for many. Losing a life partner at this stage can bring a profound sense of loneliness. Without someone to share your worries, joys, and daily experiences with, the world can feel incredibly empty. Even with children and grandchildren, the absence of a spouse leaves a void that no one else can fill. Therefore, while we still have our partners by our side, it's crucial to cherish and care for each other. Mutual support and understanding are key to making the most of the time we have left together. Ungrateful children. Parents often spend most of their lives sacrificing for their children. As they enter their senior years, they hope for love and care in return. Unfortunately, not all children treat their parents with the respect and kindness they deserve. One of the most heartbreaking experiences for those over 60 is dealing with ungrateful or disrespectful children, especially those who take advantage of their parents without showing any gratitude or love. As we grow older, it's important to let go and allow our children to take responsibility for their own lives. For those with ungrateful children, it's wise not to leave everything to them, as it may only lead to more pain and disappointment. In such cases, seniors must learn to find happiness and fulfillment on their own. As our children grow up and start their own families, it's natural for them to have their own responsibilities. To maintain harmony, it's best not to interfere too much in their lives. Instead, we should balance our time between caring for ourselves and spending time with family. Material wealth may never be enough, but it's not worth sacrificing our happiness and peace of mind. At this stage in life, enjoying a simple meal with loved ones and cherishing the moments we have is the greatest joy. Life is short, and what matters most isn't wealth, status, or reputation, but living a meaningful and fulfilling life. Regardless of our status or wealth, we all return to the earth in the end. The wisdom we gain with age helps us realize that life is a journey where the most important things are the experiences and emotions we encounter along the way. As we age, it's crucial to live fully in the present moment, without dwelling on the past or worrying too much about the future. By focusing on the present, we can find the true meaning of life and avoid regrets when we reach the end of our journey.